Hey guys, tonight we journey far. Really far. Not just before smartphones or the steam engine or even the wheel. Tonight we go back 2 million years. No lights, no language, no shoes. You open your eyes on the edge of survival. Naked, shivering, and surrounded by sounds that feel wrong. Giant insects drone in the thick air. Branches creak overhead like something waiting to fall. You are Homo habilis now, a fragile flicker in the early spark of human evolution. And just so you know, you probably won't survive this. Before you get too comfortable, make sure you like the video and subscribe only if you enjoy what happens here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? Because tonight, that might matter more than you think. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up on the hard-packed earth of an ancient savanna. The air is cooler than you expect. Heavy with the scent of wet grass, damp bark, and something sour and sharp you can't quite place. The world is loud. Bird calls, distant howls, insects chirping, something grunting not far off. You're barefoot and hungry, and oh yes, completely alone. You are small, barely over a meter tall. Your arms are long, your body narrow, and your skull lacks the great dome that modern humans boast. But inside something hums, instinct, maybe, or curiosity. Either way, your first thought is simple. Don't die. Everything in this world feels oversized. The trees loom like ancient gods, roots twisting like veins through the dirt. Even the grass brushes your knees thick and stiff with morning dew. When you move, it's careful and quiet. Every step could snap a twig, and every twig could mean trouble. You don't know it yet, but you've landed somewhere in East Africa. Maybe near Uluvi Gorge or Lake Turkana. Though the names mean nothing to you. It's a cradle, they'll say one day. A birthplace. But to you, it's just a landscape full of teeth and hunger and cold. There's no language yet, only sounds. You might grunt or click your tongue or gesture toward a tree with wide eyes. You don't need words to feel fear or hope or that deep ache in your stomach that keeps growing. Nearby, a cluster of low trees offers a bit of cover. You shuffle toward them, mindful of every dry leaf beneath your feet. Your hands are thick and capable, though your fingers lack the full dexterity of your distant descendants. Still, they can grasp and climb. And maybe, if you're lucky, carry something back with you. That sour smell again. Closer now. Something has died. And recently you don't investigate. Not yet. Because you can hear something breathing deep, heavy, slow. Predators eat first here. You wait your turn or die trying to cut in line. This is not a place for mistakes. Every mistake has a shape, a sound, a weight. Sometimes it snarls. Sometimes it flies. Historians still argue whether Homo habilis hunted small prey themselves or only scavenged the leftovers of larger predators. But one thing is clear. You are not at the top of the food chain. You have no fire, no shelter, no tribe to protect you. Not yet. Just the rising sun behind you and an endless sweep of grass ahead. You feel your heart beat against your ribs, not with excitement but with awareness. There is no room for boredom here. No time to reflect. You exist in a world where the only goal is to make it to the next sunrise. And yet something flickers, a thought, a shape. Maybe it's the sun glinting off a sharp stone or the echo of another's footstep nearby. You're not the only one out here. Others are watching, waiting, living. You wonder if they feel the same. That low, constant hum of dread mixed with an odd wonder. Because everything around you is both beautiful and terrifying. The massive termite mounds that tower like spires. The baboons that scream and tumble in the trees. The thunder of something. Heavy, maybe a hippo, moving through the underbrush. You crouch behind a rock and press your palm into the dust. It feels warm already. You draw a crude line with your finger. It means nothing, but somehow it grounds you. A moment, a mark, proof that you were here, even if just for a blink. Quirky fact, your species will be named Homo habilis, handyman for your ability to craft simple stone tools. But you're not thinking of toolkits right now. You're thinking about food, shelter, and where the nearest tree is in case something snarls again. The wind shifts. The smell of death fades, replaced by something sweeter. Berries maybe, or just your imagination. Either way, your instincts tug you forward, step by cautious step, past rocks older than memory, past footprints that look too big to be yours, past bones that still have teeth marks in them. This is survival stripped down to its bones. There's no civilization here, no plans for dinner parties or poetry, just the basic math of staying alive. Keep moving, stay quiet, eat when you can. The sun rises higher and with it the heat. Your mouth feels dry. You can't help but glance up at the sky. Blue, endless, indifferent. You are nothing here. A shadow with a pulse. And yet you're still moving, still trying. Because in this forgotten chapter of human history, that's all that mattered. To move, to breathe, to endure. You don't have teeth for this. That realization hits you somewhere between chewing a fibrous root and realizing it. Tastes like tree bark dipped in dirt. Because that's exactly what it is. Your jaw aches. Your mers, flat, dull, and already showing signs of wear, grind away at the root's stringy meat, which never quite softens no matter how long you chew. It's food, barely. But hunger doesn't care. Hunger just wants something to fill the hollow space inside you. You're built light, wiry, small. Not because you're young, but because this is the design. Homo habilis wasn't made for luxury. You're a compromise. Smaller brains than your descendants. Smaller bodies too, but smarter than those who came before. That makes you special, maybe, but not special enough to avoid starving. You spot something reddish in the grass, a wild berry, maybe a trick of the light. You shuffle over, eyes darting for movement. Snakes love berry patches. So do other things. Things faster than you. You pluck the berry, sniff, taste, spit. Too bitter, or maybe poisonous. Who knows? No one writes manuals for survival 2 million years ago. It's trial, error, and the occasional tragic mistake. Historians still argue whether Homo habilis could differentiate between edible and toxic foods, or if you simply learned by watching others get sick. Either way, you chew carefully. Everything you put in your mouth carries risk. And speaking of mouths, yours already hurts. It's not just the tough roots and bark and unripe fruit. It's your teeth themselves, ground down like sandpaper, already failing you long before you hit middle age. You don't brush. You don't floss. You do eat grit accidentally every time you chew something pulled from the soil. Tiny rocks grind between your mers with each bite. Your gums bleed, but you keep chewing because the alternative is worse. There is no fire yet. You've seen flashes of it. Lightning strikes, maybe setting dry grass ablaze. Once you watched a tree smolder after a storm. The smoke made you cough, but the warmth drew you closer, and then farther when the heat got too much. You don't know how to make it, not yet. That secret lies ahead in your evolutionary story, somewhere past you. For now, your food stays raw. That means no roasted roots, no cooked meat, no warmth at night, and definitely no boiling water to kill parasites, bacteria, or whatever else is making your stomach feel like it's twisting itself into knots every other sunrise. You bend to scoop something from the dirt, a grub, fat and pale and twitching. You've eaten worse. You pop it between your teeth. It squirms, then crunches. High in protein, they'll say one day. Gourmet even if you deep fry it and add a dipping sauce. But right now it's disgusting and exactly what you need. Your hands work constantly. You dig, you scrape, you break open seed pods, hoping for something soft inside. You chip away at bark, searching for sap or bugs. There's no break, no meal plan, just moments of relief between long stretches of nothing. You haven't felt full since you woke up here. Other figures move in the distance. Hunched shapes. They walk like you, more or less. Long arms, quick movements. You watch them crush something under a rock, then gather it carefully. Maybe nuts, maybe snails. You inch closer, but not too close. You don't trust them, not yet. And they don't trust you either. This life doesn't encourage generosity. If someone has food, they probably won't share. If you get too close, you might end up with a stone to the head. Or worse. You've seen fights, not dramatic slow motion movie fights. Just fast bursts of panic. A shriek, a thud, then silence. One fewer mouth competing for the same dry root. But it's not all brutal. Sometimes someone will drop something or leave scraps behind. And if you're quick, if you're quiet, you might snag it. Half a fruit, a cracked egg, a chunk of marrow still stuck in bone. It's not much, but it's calories, and calories are everything. The sun climbs higher. Heat settles on your shoulders like a heavy hand. Sweat stings your eyes. You wipe it away with a forearm crusted in dirt. You can't afford to stop. Food is the mission, the obsession, the whole point. Every motion, each shuffle, reach, dig, crack is guided by one thing. Keep going. Quirky fact for the night. Homo habilis might have eaten termites by poking sticks into mounds and licking them off. Not exactly five-star dining, but if it moves and doesn't kill you immediately, it's fair game. You spot a termite mound in the distance. It looks like a muddy castle rising from the grass. You walk toward it, carefully choosing a long twig on the way. The technique is simple. Poke, wait, taste. You don't know why it works, you just know it does. The taste is earthy, bitter, a little nutty, and alive. But there's protein in these tiny bodies, and that's more than can be said for half the roots you've dug up today. You sit beside the mound, chewing slowly. The insects crawl across your tongue, but you're too tired to care. Somewhere behind you, something rustles. You freeze. A part of you wants to look. The other part wants to run, but you sit still. Twig in mouth, heart hammering. The sound fades. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was a predator changing its mind. You let out a slow breath and chew another bite. There's no such thing as a peaceful meal here, just slightly less dangerous ones. Because in this world, even eating might kill you. You're cold. Not the cozy kind of cold like stepping onto a tile floor in the middle of the night or sticking your foot out from under a blanket. No, this is the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and stays there. The kind of cold that makes your joints feel ancient even if you've only lived 8 or 9 years. You shiver beneath a thin canopy of tree leaves curled into yourself like a question mark. There's no fire, no furs, just the slow, creeping chill of a world that hasn't decided what season it wants to be. You're in the ice age now, or at least brushing against its edges. The Pleistocene climate is unstable, switching gears like a toddler with a light switch. One decade, everything's damp and green. The next frost creeps down the mountains and across the plains, and waterholes turn to icy mirrors. And you are very much not built for this. Historians still argue exactly how much Homo habilis had to deal with glacial climates, or whether you mostly stuck to equatorial zones where the cold never truly froze your marrow. But here's the thing. Even near the equator, nights can get brutal. Especially when your only shelter is a fig tree with a good curve in its trunk and a few scratchy leaves. Your skin is exposed. You have hair, sure, but it's patchy, not thick enough to insulate. You press your hands into your armpits to trap a little warmth, but it's barely enough. Every night you curl tighter. You try to breathe slowly, deeply, so your own breath can warm the air in front of your face, but you're not fooling your body. It knows. It wants heat. It wants safety. And the wind, it doesn't help. It howls through the trees like it's laughing. You huddle closer to the trunk, back scraping bark, trying not to fall out of your chosen perch. Sleeping in a tree is safer than the ground. Sure, but only just. Branches shift, birds startle, and once in a while something climbs, something silent. Your stomach growls again. Not that it ever really stops. Hunger and cold are old friends. They visit you often. You wonder what it would be like to have warmth, not just from sun or effort, but real consistent warmth. A fire, a blanket, even a soft patch of moss that doesn't feel like frozen sponges. But comfort is a myth here. You rise with the first signs of daylight, not because you're rested, but because you survived the night. That alone feels like a win. Your limbs ache. Your fingers are stiff. Your breath fogs in front of you. It feels wrong to see your breath like that, hanging in the air like a ghost. You blink it away and climb down carefully, feet numb, every movement slow and creaky. You need food, and food means moving. But the landscape has changed again. Patches of grass are brown and brittle. Shrubs are wilted. Animal tracks are fewer. And when you do find them, they all point away from the valley. You're not the only one who notices the drop in temperature. You pass a dry riverbed. A week ago it gurgled with cold water and slippery stones. Now it's cracked and dry, the mud pulling away from itself like tired skin. You pause and kneel. Maybe there's still a puddle left. Something, anything. You find a patch of wet sand and suck on it like it owes you a favor. This is survival Platoin style. You keep walking and your world keeps shifting. The trees thin. The wind sharpens. You spot snow, not in drifts, but in tiny flakes clinging to grass like dandruff. It's beautiful, but you hate it anyway. Snow means no roots to dig, no bugs to poke, no animals lingering long enough to scavenge. Even the flies are gone. You squat near a boulder and press your fingers to a patch of moss. Cold, slimy. You scrape it off with a stone and chew it anyway. It tastes like disappointment. But hey, fiber. Quirky fact for your frozen misery. Early humans may have relied on kopagi. Yes, occasionally eating feces to survive long, lean winters. yours or someone else's. If that sounds horrifying, it's because it is. But when your choices are one, maybe die, or two, eat that mystery patty near the bushes, well, nature doesn't care about your dignity. You keep moving, one foot in front of the other, joints creaking like old trees. The air smells clean, too clean. Nothing is rotting, nothing is blooming, nothing is moving. And then tracks. You crouch low. Something passed here recently, not a predator. Hoof prints, broad, heavy, maybe a herd. That could mean food or danger, or both. You follow the tracks, heart pounding faster now. Not from fear, but the possibility of something other than gnawing cold and empty days. You crest a small hill and spot them. Giant herbivores huddled together near a windbreak of stone. Their breath clouds the air. They don't see you, not yet. You creep closer, not to attack. You're not a hunter, but to watch, to learn. Maybe they'll leave scraps. Maybe something else will kill one, and you can scavenge. That's the hope. That's always the hope. You settle behind a rock and curl into yourself. Not to sleep, not this time, but just to stay hidden. Your breath slows, your limbs ache. The cold never really leaves. But you are still here. Somehow you hear it before you see it. A low growl, almost a rumble. Like thunder trapped beneath the earth. It's distant at first, then closer, then gone. You freeze. Your entire body, small, hunched, underfed, stiffens with instinct. That sound doesn't belong to wind. It doesn't belong to your kind. It belongs to something bigger, something with claws, something that absolutely does not care how clever your hands are. You are not alone out here. Your world, already harsh, is teeming with predators. This is not a nature documentary where lions yawn in the sun and wildebeests frolic in golden fields. This is the actual Pleistocene where every animal is either dangerous, dead, or desperately trying not to become one of those two. And you are not high on the food chain. You are chewy and slow and barely worth the effort. The ground bears their marks. Massive paw prints, some as wide as your head, press into the damp dirt. One is fresh. You touch it with trembling fingers and the soil is still warm. That means it was here just minutes ago. A saber-toothed cat, probably. Megan Terrarian, if you want to be specific. It walks like mist and strikes like thunder. You wouldn't even hear it coming. You back away, heart pounding, and duck into the undergrowth. Every leaf brushes your skin like it's tattling on you. The air smells like wet bark and predator musk. Sharp, metallic, dangerous. You crouch under a thorny shrub and hold your breath. You don't move for a long time because in this world movement can mean death. Historians still debate whether Homo habilis had dedicated warning calls like modern primates do. Distinct alarm sounds for different types of predators. You might not know words, but you feel what kind of threat is nearby. Something slinks, something stalks, and something waits. They each trigger a different kind of terror in your gut. You wait until the shadows move elsewhere. Slowly, painfully, you uncurl and shuffle. Along a creek bed, staying low, eyes wide. Every rock could be hiding teeth. Every bush could growl. You've seen it before. One moment your group is foraging, half watching the horizon. The next, one of you is gone, dragged into the grass by something striped and silent. There's usually no scream, just a thud, maybe some rustling. Then nothing. Sometimes you see what's left. The world is cruel like that. You pass a carcass, not recent, just bones and tendons and flies now. But the shape of the rib cage, the drag marks in the soil, the splintered femur, they tell a story. Something large died here. Then something larger came and tore it apart. You bend to examine a bone. A stone tool might scrape marrow from inside. You glance around, always glancing around, and then wedge a sharp flake against the bone. The crack is loud. Too loud. You freeze. Silence. Then a rustle in the brush. You abandon the bone and dart into the trees, climbing quickly, fingers digging into bark, feet slipping. Once, twice. Your breath catches in your throat as something below steps into the clearing. It's there! Golden eyes, striped fur, muscles coiled beneath its skin. A saber-toothed cat indeed. It sniffs the air, lowers its head to the broken bone, and licks at the marrow you didn't get. It doesn't look up, but it could. You stay perfectly still in the tree. Because in this world, stillness is survival. Quirky fact, Megantarian's saber teeth weren't just long, they were fragile. One wrong bite into bone and they could snap. That's why it preferred soft kills, windpipes, bellies, juicy bits. Which means had it caught you, it wouldn't have started at your arm or leg. It would have gone straight for your throat. A warm thought. You wait and wait. The cat finishes sniffing around and disappears the same way it came, like mist vanishing in heat. You stay in the tree anyway, just in case. The branches groan slightly under your weight, but they're your only refuge. High up you can spot movement, plan escape, maybe even get a few minutes of uneasy rest. But there's more than just one predator out there. Hyenas roam in packs. Pecrota they're called now. Giant snarling creatures with jaws that could crush your skull like an eggshell. They don't hunt you, not usually. But if you're injured, alone or slow, they will. And unlike cats, they laugh when they do it. You remember one night the noise. Not just one voice, but many surrounding you, cackling. They didn't attack, but they knew you were there. You stayed in that tree until the sun came up, gripping the branch so hard your palms bled. There's no safe here. Not on land, not in trees, and certainly not near the water, because beneath the murky surface of the river, something else waits. Crocodilius thorbjari. It's okay if you can't pronounce it. You wouldn't get a chance to scream it anyway. It waits motionless until you bend to drink, then nap. You are a splash, a ripple, then a memory. Historians still argue whether Homo habilis had enough spatial awareness to recognize specific predator territories, whether you knew where not to go or just avoided places where friends disappeared. Either way, your instincts are loud and clear. Don't linger near rivers. You try to move through this world like a whisper. You climb trees like shadows. You drink from leaves. You sleep with one eye open, one foot braced against the branch. Because everything out here, everything bigger, faster, stronger, is hungry. And you are just available. You're starving again. Of course you are. Hunger is your oldest companion now. It gnaws at your belly like a second heartbeat, steady, constant, never satisfied. You don't remember what full feels like. You just know that every morning begins with the question, what can I eat that won't kill me first? And unfortunately, the options are limited. You start the day the same way you always do. Crawling down from your precarious sleeping branch, joints aching, muscles sore from holding tension all night. You stretch cautiously. Something cracks in your back. The sun is just a smear of pale gold on the horizon, and the air is cool. Too cool to relax. Your eyes scan the underbrush, hoping for a glimpse of something edible. Berries, bugs, even bark. But it's been a dry week, and the roots have grown bitter. The insects have burrowed deeper. You suspect the hyenas got to the last carcass in the area 3 days ago. Nothing left but ribs like broken umbrellas. So, you walk quietly, carefully. You're not a hunter. Let's be clear on that. Homo habilis is not the apex predator of any food chain. You don't have the strength, the speed, or the claws. What you do have is patience and sharp rocks and a desperate willingness to approach something much larger than you. If it means maybe, just maybe, you can scrape off a few mouthfuls of meat. You're a scavenger. That's your role in this ancient ecosystem. Not glamorous, not heroic, but essential. Historians still argue about how often early humans actively hunted versus simply lurking around the edges of a predator's kill, waiting to sneak in like nervous party crashers. But one thing's certain, you've done this before. You know the signs. A rustle in the distance, the smell of blood on the breeze, vultures circling like lazy satellites. Your stomach tightens with a kind of hopeful fear. It could be a meal, or it could be the last thing you ever see. You head toward the smell. Eventually you find it. A dead wildebeest or something like it. Its body is half intact, already torn open at the belly. The meat is fresh, steam still rising faintly from its side. You freeze, sniff the air, nothing nearby. Not yet. You approach slowly, stone tool in hand, just a chipped flake, but sharp enough to matter. You kneel by the carcass, eyes scanning, ears twitching at every sound. And then quickly, like you've practiced 1,000 times, you slice. It doesn't go smoothly. The skin is tough, the muscle resistant. But eventually a strip comes free. It glistens red in your hand. You don't cook it. You don't season it. You just chew. It's warm, metallic, chewy, and exactly what you need. You eat like a thief. Fast, guilty, alert, because you know this moment won't last. Sure enough, within minutes the air shifts. A soft crunch behind you. You freeze. Look back. Eyes too many. A small pack of hyenas slinking through the grass like smoke. One of them stares directly at you, not charging. Not yet. Just watching. You back away slowly, mouth full, hand tight around your tool. You don't want to drop it. Stone flakes are hard to come by. The hyenas advance. You hiss, wave your arms. One growls. You snarl back even though your heart's in your throat. You're not threatening. You're just delaying. Eventually they get what they came for, and you run. That strip of meat in your hand, that might be your entire calorie count for the next 2 days, and you're lucky to have gotten it at all. You don't. Think about how many mouths are hungrier than yours, or how many failed. You think about this bite, this day. That's all that matters. You've won a round in a game where most lose before they even realize they're playing. Quirky fact. Evidence from fossilized bones suggests that early Homo habilis often left distinctive tool marks near predator tooth marks, meaning you weren't first to the kill, but you were definitely next. Kind of like a nervous medieval wedding crasher, except instead of bad wine and dancing, there's a chewed-up zebra and a pack of hyenas deciding if you're worth chasing. The truth is, you've learned how to read the land. You spot where vultures gather. You follow lion trails, not to hunt them, but to scavenge their leftovers. You know where the predators sleep, when they feed, and when they're too full to care if you sneak in and take a bit. But it's always a gamble. Today you got lucky. Tomorrow, who knows? You walk back toward the treine, chewing slowly now, savoring each tough bite. Your teeth hurt, of course. They always do. The meat fibers wedge deep into your muscles. You'll need to pick them out with a stick later, or they'll rot. One infected tooth and you're done. But right now, this is victory. You return to your perch with a full belly and sore legs. The sun is high now, the shadows shorter. You lay down high in the tree, stomach pressing into the branch. For a moment you let your eyes close. It's not sleep, not really, but it's close enough. And here, close enough is everything. You hear them before you see them. Not animals this time, but voices, human or close enough. Low, throaty murmurs, grunts, the slap of bare feet against packed earth. You freeze, crouched behind a scraggly bush, clutching a half-gnawed root like a club. It wouldn't do much, but it feels better to hold something. You're not alone, and not in the animal passing through your camp kind of way. These are your own kind or close to it. Other Homo habilis, maybe even. The same loose group you wandered from days ago or weeks. It's hard to tell. Time here is just sun and shadow, sleep and starvation. They move in a loose cluster, 4 to 5 figures. One limps, another carries a bundle of something long and shiny, bones maybe. You watch them pass, your breath caught in your chest. They haven't seen you yet, and you haven't decided whether that's good or bad. See, being part of a group isn't always safer. It just means different risks. Sometimes you get to share food. Other times you are the food. Homo habilis isn't known for large, tightly bonded tribes. You form loose clusters, bands of relatives maybe, or just not enemies. You might sleep near each other, forage in the same patch, grunt now and then in a way that says, "I see you. I won't kill you yet." Historians still argue how deep those social bonds went. Did you have names? Did you mourn your dead? Or just move on to the next edible route? You decide to follow quietly. Their path weaves through low brush and toward a rocky ridge. The tallest one, broad-shouldered, thick-jawed, seems to lead, though not with confidence. Just habit. You recognize that look. It's the same look you've worn. Eyes scanning for danger, for opportunity, for the next half-eaten carcass to squat beside. You stay back, trailing like a ghost. If they find something, maybe you can join, or steal, or just stay close enough to absorb their caution without getting too close. Because group life is a negotiation. There's a reason you prefer trees. Trees don't talk behind your back. Trees don't push you aside when food shows up. Trees don't slap your hand away from a cracked egg or whack you with a femur because you looked at someone the wrong way. That's the thing about early humans. We're social but not always friendly. They settle in a shallow clearing. One of them drops a rock with a grunt. Another starts pounding it into a flake. Tool making. It's clumsy, but it works. You watch from behind it, boulder, fascinated. That rock could become a scraper or a blade or just something sharp enough to dig for tubers. One of them spots you. You don't move. Neither do they. The moment hangs, delicate and strange. Then slowly the one with the limp gestures, just a tilt of the chin, an invitation, a warning. It's impossible to tell. You step into view anyway. Hands open, root dropped at your feet like an offering. The group watches. No one speaks. There are no true words, only shared sounds. Body. Language glances. The tall one snorts but doesn't move. The limper looks you over, then turns back to their rock. You sit nearby, not close, not far. You are tolerated. That's a good start. Later, someone tosses you a piece of bark with bugs clinging to it. A gift or a test. You eat it quickly anyway. Your hands stay visible. Your movements are slow. You are learning the rules. And the first rule is this: don't be a threat. Quirky fact: archaeologists have found evidence of interpersonal violence among early hominins. Skull fractures, healed bones, blunt trauma. You weren't always gentle with each other. Group dynamics included jealousy, aggression, even competition for mates or scraps. In a world with no jails, no police, no HR departments, justice came fast and brutal. The limping one grunts again. You glance over. They're chewing something soft, maybe marrow from a cracked femur. They hold it loosely. Then, shockingly, they stretch out their hand. They offer you a bite. Your stomach jumps. You hesitate because generosity isn't common. Then you lean forward and take it carefully, eyes locked. It's warm, greasy, glorious. That's what life in a group can be. Hunger, risk, and the occasional miracle. But comfort is brief because soon two others start bickering over a pile of half-rotten roots. One screeches, the other shoves. There's no warning. The bigger one lifts a stone and swings. A dull thunk. The smaller one crumples like wet cloth. Silence. The tall leader grunts low and sharp. The others scatter slightly but don't intervene. The attacker drags the roots closer. No one helps the one on the ground. You stare, not in shock. This isn't new, just in quiet recognition. That could have been you. Historians still debate how much empathy existed in early humans. Did you comfort the injured or leave them behind? Was cooperation a choice or just a way to delay being the next to fall? The injured one stirs, groans, blood mats their hair. They'll probably live, maybe, but no one rushes to help. You slip away at sunset quietly, like a shadow, because sometimes survival means knowing when to leave the warmth of the group and return to the solitude of the trees. You're sick, not dramatically, not the fall down and die kind, just off. Your stomach aches. Your head feels heavy, like it's stuffed with mud. Your eyes water. Every breath tastes like old leaves, and you're not sure why. You didn't eat anything that was rotten, do you? But that's the tricky part, isn't it? In this world, there are 1,000 ways to feel this way, and no way to know which one got you this time. You lie curled in a nest of dead branches tucked between the roots of a fig tree. The dirt is cool against your cheek. That should help, but nothing really helps. Your limbs ache. Your gut clenches every so often, and when it does, you bite your arm to keep from groaning. You're alone again. You left the group 2 nights ago when tensions flared and the tall one started giving you the look. The kind that says there are too many mouths here. Yours might be one too many. So now it's just you and whatever this sickness is. Historians still argue what diseases Homo habilis faced. There's no fossil record of the flu, no DNA evidence of stomach bugs from 2 million years ago. But let's be real. If you drink from a puddle where a sick animal just pooped, if you eat a grub that's already half decayed, if your fingers never aren't caked in dirt, you're going to get sick often. You shiver. The sun is out, but you're cold. Fever maybe, or the breeze has picked up again. Either way, you wrap your arms tighter around your chest and press your forehead to the soil. You think about water, then immediately think about how far away the stream is. It's not just food and predators out here. It's the invisible things, parasites, bacteria, viruses. You don't know the words, of course. You just know that sometimes someone goes quiet, curls up and stops moving, and you can't see the thing that did it. You crawl toward a patch of dew, licking moisture off leaves. It tastes green, bitter. Your stomach growls again, not from hunger but from warning. It flips, twists, complains. You wait, then vomit. Quirky fact: there's some evidence early hominins might have instinctively practiced forms of geophagy, eating clay or dirt to settle their stomachs. You don't know that, but you feel it. An urge. You press a lump of pale mud to your tongue, then swallow. It's dry, chalky, not pleasant, but your gut settles just a little. It's not elegant, but hey, neither is anything out here. You stagger upright slowly. Everything hurts. Your legs feel heavy, like they belong to someone else. You walk with a hand pressed to your belly, following instinct more than memory. There's a place not far where the rocks collect water after rain. You hope it hasn't dried out yet. Every step feels like a gamble. You reach the rocks. There's water. Stale, warm, filled with tiny things that wriggle just under the surface. You drink anyway because you're thirsty, and thirst doesn't wait. Then you sit, or rather slump, The rock warms your spine. You tilt your head back and close your eyes, maybe just for a minute. When you open them again, the shadows have shifted. Something moves nearby. A monkey. Not one of your kind. Just a tree dweller with clever fingers and wide, suspicious eyes. It screeches when it sees you, then pelts you with a fig. It misses. Barely. You grunt softly in. Response. Too tired to be offended. The monkey bounds away. You almost envy it. The agility, the speed, the tail. Honestly, you lie back again and stare at the sky. This world is beautiful and brutal. The clouds drift lazily above you, soft and pink at the edges. Somewhere beyond those clouds, people will one day invent antibiotics, microscopes, thermometers, but none of that exists for you. You are a fragile body in a world of invisible threats. You remember others you've seen, people who got slower, quieter. Someone once had a wound on their leg that swelled, turned red, then black. They screamed for hours, then stopped. You stayed away from their body. Everyone did. Even scavengers seemed wary. Your species doesn't understand infection, but your instincts do. They tell you what to avoid, where to bury waste, which water smells wrong. You cough, your throat burns. You dig into the dirt with your fingers, searching for roots with moisture. You find one. Bite. It's bitter, but it helps a little. Another quirky detail. Some researchers believe early humans might have used natural medicinal plants either by accident or through observation. Chimps do it. Why not you? You'll never know the word antiviral, but maybe you stumble across something with just enough punch to slow the sickness. You rest again. Sleep here is never deep. You drift in and out. Sometimes you dream. Sometimes it's just darkness with sound. Wind, insects, distant calls. Sometimes you wonder if you'll wake up at all, but eventually you do. The fever breaks by morning. You're not better. Not really, but you're alive. Your stomach no longer curls in protest. Your legs shake, but they hold you. The water still tastes like tadpoles, but you drink it without gagging. You survived another invisible enemy. For now, you're tired of walking. Not just tired, like sore feet or a stiff back. This is deeper. Your bones ache in a way that feels ancient. Your shoulders slump without thinking. You've been following the migration paths of grazing animals for days, moving from one thin patch of berries to the next, from one hopeful stream to another patch of sun-baked nothing. The land has turned dry, cracked. The plants are stiff and defensive, the kind with spines that jab and sap that stings. There's not much left out here, and your stomach is tired of hearing your promises. You pause under a shriveled tree with barely enough leaves to offer shade. The wind is dry and loud, brushing sand over your feet like it's trying to erase you. You crouch down, stare at the horizon, and try to imagine anything better than this. Then something shifts in your head. A thought, not a fully formed idea, just a pull. What if you didn't have to move anymore? What if food could come to you? It sounds ridiculous at first, but your body remembers where the plants grew best, where water stayed longest. The idea clings to your mind like burrs to your fur. Maybe instead of chasing the herds forever, you could stay just a little longer. Maybe you could find a way to make this patch of dry, cracking dirt work. You don't know it, but you're standing on the edge of something big. Historians still argue over the exact moment when humans shifted from nomadic foragers to settled agriculturalists. But somewhere, perhaps in a dry season like this, someone like you got tired of wandering. You spot a cluster of seeds near a riverbed, left behind by animals or blown by wind. You pocket a few, not because you know what they are, just because they seem important. That instinct, it'll change everything. You settle near a stream that still has water in the morning. It's muddy, sure, and slow-moving, but it's enough. You dig up roots nearby. You notice that some patches seem to grow back faster. The idea grows with them. Quirky fact, some researchers believe the first farmers were accidental, that early humans may have spread seeds through waste or lazy habits long before anyone thought to plant on purpose. You're not planting a garden yet. You're just staying in one place for a few days, then a few more. The food gets a little easier to find because you know where to look. And eventually you realize something else. When you're not moving all the time, you can carry more. You can store things. You can keep a sharp rock or a smooth bone or a pile of useful seeds. For the first time, your hands are full of possibility. But it comes at a cost. Your back starts to ache more because now, instead of walking, you're bending, digging, grinding, pounding. You smash seeds between stones until they become a bitter mush. You chew and chew and chew because now your diet is starch and more starch, and no fire yet to soften it. Your teeth suffer badly. Historians can trace the shift to agriculture in fossilized jaws, cavities, abscesses, massive wear from grinding seeds into coarse paste and eating them raw or barely processed. You used to have bad teeth, now you have miserable teeth. Your body changes too. You grow thinner in some ways, thicker in others. The variety in your diet drops. You used to eat anything you could find: nuts, bugs, meat, fruit, even the occasional frog. Now it's roots and grass seeds and maybe a few berries if you're lucky. You stop walking so much, but you start working more. Longer hours digging, longer hours preparing food that fills your stomach but doesn't make you feel strong. And because you're not moving, you start living closer to others. That means you share food more. But it also means you share something else: sickness, the invisible enemies you thought you left behind. They're thrilled, close contact, shared water, rotting food scraps, perfect conditions for bacteria to throw a tiny, violent party in your intestines. Your life expectancy, it doesn't really go up, but your population does. More food, however bland or tooth-cracking, means more people, more babies survive, more noise, more competition. You start to see conflicts over space. Not just food, not just predators, but land, dirt, mud, the spot where the river bends, the tree that always has fruit. You've invented farming. Congratulations. You've also invented jealousy. And that brings something else with it: ownership, territory, control. You used to wander. Now you stay. And when someone else comes close, you stand straighter. You don't smile. You grip your stone tool just a little tighter. You don't have a word for mine, but you understand the concept perfectly. The idea of home starts to form. Not a house, not yet. Just a space where you belong more than someone else does, where your fire might someday burn, where your roots might grow back a little stronger next season. You don't know what's coming. Cities, kingdoms, rent payments. But for now, you've taken the first step. And like everything else in this world, it's a step forward and a risk, because by settling, you've stopped running. And in a world full of predators, disease, and other humans with sharp rocks, that might not be the best idea. You smell it before you see it. A thick, wet stink that clings to your nostrils and settles at the back of your throat. It's not death, not quite, but something close. Rotate east. Mud mixed with something human. You gag just a little and keep walking. You followed the river downstream for days. The trees thin. The brush vanishes, and then suddenly there it is. A cluster of huts. Smoke curling from a dozen smoldering pits. Shouts. And coughing in the distance. A steady line of figures trudging between piles of debris and brackish pools. It's a settlement. Congratulations. You found what will someday be called a city, or at least its earliest, muddiest prototype, and it is disgusting. Historians agree. The rise of early proto-urban settlements brought huge advances in community living, shared labor, and specialization. But here's the thing they don't always emphasize. These places were filthy. No plumbing, no sanitation, no personal space. Just people stacked next to people, breathing the same air, drinking the same water, and dumping their waste basically everywhere. You step carefully around a puddle that may have once been soup or worse. You're no longer wandering the wilderness alone. You're now surrounded by dozens, maybe hundreds of people. Infants squalling, elders groaning, bodies pressed into tight huts made from clay and straw, and wishful thinking. Everyone is busy digging, hauling, chewing, coughing, always coughing. You try not to breathe too deeply. The air tastes like soot and something vaguely fungal. You edge toward the center of the settlement. A woman is pounding grain with a heavy rock, her arms thick from repetition. A child squats nearby, scooping something into their mouth with dirty fingers. Another drags a dead bird across the ground. No one notices you yet. You're not sure if you want them to. This place might offer safety from predators, but you're not sure what's worse: getting mauled by a hyena or catching whatever that child just sneezed onto the ground. Quirky fact, the earliest known cities like Chapel-Horiuk show no real separation between living quarters and waste areas. People slept inches from where they buried their trash, and sometimes they're dead. Urban planning had not yet been invented or even imagined. You find a shaded corner behind a hut and crouch down. Flies swarm immediately. One lands on your face. You swat. Another lands on your food. You swat again. A third lands on someone's open wound. No one swats. They're used to it. A man limps past you dragging a splintered wooden sled loaded with firewood. His foot is wrapped in dirty cloth soaked through. You can smell the infection. He doesn't make eye contact. This is not a community of joy. It's a community of necessity. No one's here for the company. They're here because food is nearby. Because walls, even mud ones, offer a little protection, and because this place, however foul, means one less night of freezing in a tree while leopards circle below. You feel that trade-off. It weighs on your skin like the heat radiating off the clay walls. A child offers you something. Bread, maybe. It's hard as a rock and smells faintly of mold. But you accept it because rejecting it might be rude, and because honestly your options are limited. You chew slowly. Your mers complain. There's sand in it. Of course there is. You glance at the water nearby. A shallow pool clogged with algae, feathers, and something unidentifiable floating along the edges. People scoop water into clay jars anyway. A woman dips her cloth in it to wipe her baby's face. Another fills a cup and drinks. You watch in horror, and then you drink too, because thirst doesn't care about bacteria. Historians still debate the exact causes of the first cholera outbreaks in early urban societies. But we know this. The moment humans started living in dense clusters and drinking from shared contaminated sources, disease exploded. Germ theory wouldn't come around for another 2 million years. In the meantime, you'll get sick repeatedly, and you'll have no idea why. Someone nearby sneezes so hard they fall over. You pretend not to notice. That's the unspoken rule of proto-cities. Don't make eye contact unless you have to. Everyone's tired. Everyone is ill. Everyone's secretly wondering if they made a huge mistake by sticking around. You help grind grain for a while. You're not part of the group, but no one stops you. There's a rhythm to it. Pound, scrape, pour. You almost feel useful. Then your wrist cramps and your back starts to seize. Farming gave you food, but it also gave you repetitive stress injuries. You leave the group before nightfall. You can't sleep here. Too much coughing. Too many people. Not enough space between breaths. You find a patch of dirt just outside the settlement and curl into it like a stray dog. You've eaten, you've worked, you've contributed, but you miss the trees. Even if they creaked, even if they dropped bugs on your face at night, at least you were alone. You listen to the wind rustling the dry grass. You cough just once and try not to think about that puddle you drank from. You stink. There's no delicate way to say it. Your body is a canvas of sweat, dirt, and whatever that goo was that dripped on you while you were crouching under a smoke pit this morning. You've stopped flinching at the smell. Everyone stinks here. It's the one thing that unites you. All. You, the grain pounders, the wood haulers, the fish scalers, the dung gatherers, you're all participating in the same great aromatic festival of bodily funk. But you've noticed something else, a shift. People have started trying to cover the smell. That woman with the braided hair, she rubs herself with crushed herbs and clay. That older man with the scarred cheek. He's constantly dabbing at his skin with what looks like ash mixed with some kind of oil. You don't know what it does, but it makes him smell like smoke and mint. If mint had given up on life. Welcome to the Bronze Age. Historians love this era. Tools get fancier. Settlements grow. Trade routes form. But no one talks about the stench, the body odor, the unwashed tunics, the boiling pits of fish oil, the urine-soaked cloth used to soften leather, the reek of people living in tight spaces, working all day, rarely if ever, washing anything. You tug at your own garment, such as it is, a loose wrap of coarse fiber that scratches more than it covers. It smells like the river, or possibly someone else's river wrap. There is no soap. Not really. Not the bubbly lavender kind you're imagining. There are ashes, maybe sand, a river if you're lucky, or a puddle that looks like a river if you're desperate. And every time you try to wash, you risk freezing, getting bitten, or accidentally bathing next to a herd animal with very strong feelings about personal space. You try rubbing yourself with crushed leaves. It helps. A little, but now you just smell like dirty leaves. Quirky fact. In some early cultures, people wore scented cones of animal fat on their heads that slowly melted throughout the day, releasing perfume. Imagine being hot, sticky, and surrounded by bugs, and deciding the answer is to rub beef tallow on your scalp. You walk through the settlement. A narrow path winds between rows of huts and lean-tos. Smoke drifts from hearths. Children scream. A man sneezes directly onto his arm, wipes it off on his tunic, and continues hammering a copper blade. Hygiene is a loose concept here. Cleanliness is more about ritual than sanitation. You bathe for festivals or funerals, or when someone important tells you to. But not because you're dirty. Because honestly, you're always dirty. You crouch by a stream hoping to rinse your hands. The water is cloudy, but it's better than nothing. As you scrub, a woman beside you cracks open a shell, scoops something slimy inside, and smears it under her arms. You stare. She grunts. You grunt back, which seems to satisfy her. She gestures for you to try. You hesitate. The goo smells like sour milk and crushed mint. You apply a bit to your neck. Just a dab. Congratulations. You now smell like someone tried to fix you. That's as good as it gets. Back at the village center, a group is gathered around a pile of dried dung. They're burning it. Not for fuel, but for the smoke. It keeps bugs away, they say. You sit in the smoke for a while, blinking through the haze, tears leaking from the corners of your eyes. You're not sure if it's working. You're still itchy, but you're warmer and weirdly kind of numb. Historians still debate the effectiveness of these ancient pest-repelling techniques. Burning dung, hanging herbs, rubbing on oil. None of it killed bacteria, but it masked the worst. And in a world without soap or science, that was close enough. Someone hands you a carved comb. Bone. Delicate. Surprisingly smooth. You run it through your hair and immediately dislodge a colony of tiny jumping insects. Lice, of course. You squash one between your fingernails and flick it away. You'll never be clean. Not by modern standards, but you can be less filthy. That's the goal. You wipe your face with a damp cloth even though the cloth smells like goat. You chew on a leaf to freshen your breath. You rub your feet with sand, scratching off layers of old skin. There's no mirror here, but if there were, it wouldn't be kind. Your sun-darkened, scarred, covered in a film of sweat, dust, and protein grease. You smell like meat, smoke, and whatever's currently rotting in the back of the settlement. And still, somehow, you've adapted. The flies don't bother you as much now. Your skin, once soft, has gone rough and calloused. The smell of sweat no longer signals alarm. It signals life. If you stink, it means you're still breathing. You sit by the fire, comb in hand, and watch the smoke curl upward into the early evening air. Someone offers you a chunk of boiled something. You take it, chew. It's hot, bland, tastes faintly of mud. You swallow anyway. And beside you, someone leans in and whispers something. You don't know the words, but you recognize the tone. They think you smell better. Progress. You have a job now. Not the kind with a lunch break or a pay slip. No one gives you a bronze medallion for employee of the moon cycle. But make no mistake, you have a task, a role, a daily duty. And if you don't do it, someone else might notice. And not kindly. Your job? Human incense stick. You laugh quietly, bitterly as you trudge through the smoke hazy market square, waving a bowl of smoldering herbs and dung pellets through the air. The smoke curls around you, a choking fog meant to ward off insects, spirits, or maybe just the stench of the fish pile fermenting in the sun nearby. Technically, your role is to purify the air. Realistically, you're just walking aromatherapy. The irony, you stink too. Under all that ceremonial smoke, you still smell like last week's sweat and whatever the goats were rolling in. Welcome to ancient job specialization. You weren't born into wealth. You weren't born into power. So, that means you got assigned one of the jobs no one else wanted. You know the ones. Dung collector, clay pot fixer, public fire tender, bone cleaner, grain grinder, corpse stretcher, the bottom rungs of a very steep and smelly ladder. Historians love to marvel at the division of labor in early civilizations. But let's be honest, it mostly meant dividing misery into manageable shifts. The rich got beads and ceremonies. You got ash in your eyes and sore knees. Today you're helping clear the latrine pit. Yes, that's a thing now. A shared pit dug deep behind the settlement's edge, covered loosely with reeds and planks. It's supposed to be a sanitation innovation. Instead, it's a bubbling swamp of horror that occasionally hisses. You try not to breathe through your nose as you poke at the pit's edge with a stick, checking for cavins. Quirky fact, some ancient civilizations, like in early Mesopotamia, really did have rudimentary sewer systems, but many others just relied on gravity and hope. Waste trickled downhill into the water supply or pulled in shared trenches behind homes. That innovation is what you're ankle-deep in now. You carry a sloshing bucket back toward the communal waste trench, muttering to yourself and swatting flies that are bold enough to land directly on your face. You dump the bucket. Some of it splashes onto your leg. You don't cry, not out loud, but you do. Look longingly at the fire pit and wonder what it would be like to just walk straight in. Your boss, if you can call her that, is a broad-shouldered woman with a voice like falling rocks and a face that hasn't smiled since the last eclipse. She gestures toward a pile of oily cloths, clearly soaked in something unholy, and grunts. You get the message. Washing them involves a flat rock, cold water, and a bar of something vaguely soap-like made from fat and ashes. You scrub, scrub, scrub. Your knuckles bleed. The cloths don't get cleaner. They just smell different, like burnt hair now instead of death. And then, just when you think the day can't get worse, a child runs up and vomits on your foot. No one apologizes. It's just part of the workflow. You rinse in the stream, which smells like soup that forgot it was soup weeks ago. You find a patch of moss and scrape the worst of the filth off your foot. Then you breathe deeply, carefully, because at some point you've stopped expecting comfort. You've started measuring success in terms of less disgusting. The afternoon sun climbs high, and with it the smell of everything intensifies. You stagger to the shade of a thatched hut, eyes watering, and collapse into a squat. A man nearby is shaping arrowheads. His hands are swift and practiced. You watch. You want that job. Sitting in the shade, crafting something sharp, something useful, something not covered in human waste. But you know how it works. Jobs here aren't chosen. They're assigned by birth, by accident, by some unlucky sneeze at the wrong moment. You once knew a girl who became the village tanner because she stood too close to the animal pit one morning. The smell never left her hair. Still, you hope. Because maybe, just maybe, if you work hard enough or stink slightly less than yesterday, you'll get moved, promoted, not to anything grand, but to something less humiliating, like bone scraper or ceremonial bell ringer. Historians still debate how rigid job systems were in early societies. Some evidence points to fluid roles where tasks rotated seasonally. Others suggest early caste systems began here. Divisions not just of labor, but of fate. You hope you're in the rotating kind. As the sun sets, your last task is lighting the night torches. It sounds romantic. It isn't. You fumble with flint. Your fingers blistered from scrubbing cloths and poking waste. Sparks spit into the bundle of dry grass. It catches. You lift the torch, wave it above your head, and walk the perimeter. It's the most power you've held all day. For a moment, you are the light bearer, the firewalker, the one who casts shadows. Then a breeze hits and ash blows straight into your face. Back to normal. You return to your sleeping spot, a patch of straw and a thin hide stretched between two stones. You lie back. The stars come out. Somewhere nearby, a dog howls, or maybe a child. Hard to tell. You don't complain because in this world, even the worst job is better than none. At least you're still needed. At least you're still here. You wake up soaked in something cold. It takes a moment to register. You blink, wipe your eyes, and realize it's not rain. It's goat urine. A very confused goat is standing over your sleeping spot, looking more apologetic than you'd expect. You sigh. It's barely dawn and already the day is getting personal. You sit up, stretch, and something in your spine pops loud enough to startle the goat. Your legs ache. Your head itches. Your lower back feels like it was stomped on by a clay golem. You're officially in the Middle Ages now, though you wouldn't know to call it that. All you know is that everything hurts. Everyone smells, and no one seems to understand how bodies are supposed to work. You head to the communal fire pit. Breakfast is a grey, lumpy broth with the flavor profile of despair. You slurp it down. It tastes slightly better than yesterday's because someone added a handful of leeks or possibly weeds. Someone nearby is coughing. A deep, rattling cough that seems to echo off the mud walls. They press a cloth to their face. It comes away red. No one says anything. Illness is everywhere and nobody knows why. You don't understand germs. You don't have microscopes or disinfectants. You just know that some people get hot and shaky, start coughing, stop eating, then stop everything. And sometimes they take others with them. Historians still debate whether medieval communities understood contagion in any meaningful way. They certainly didn't know about bacteria, but they did know about patterns. And when one person in the village started coughing, everyone got nervous. You're nervous now. You head to the village healer. Not a doctor, just someone who smells strongly of sage, burnt feathers, and overconfidence. She grunts, gestures for you to sit. Then begins the treatment. First leeches. A handful of wriggling, eager creatures plopped onto your skin. One on the arm, one behind your ear, one that tries to Make a break for your armpit. She catches it and scolds it. You're not sure which of you she's talking to. Then a poultice. She slaps a warm, pungent blob of herbs and pig fat onto your chest and binds it with cloth. It's squishy. It leaks. You nod solemnly. Finally, the pièce de resistance. Pigeon droppings. She smears a thin paste of it near your temples, muttering something that sounds vaguely threatening. You are too polite to ask questions and too tired to argue. Quirky fact. Yes. Droppings were genuinely used in medieval medicine along with crushed emeralds, fried mice, and famously urine. You were a walking spice rack of the Ville's worst ideas. You head back to your heel. It's made of WLE and daub. Basically twigs and mud with a thatched roof that leaks if you look at it too hard. The Dorcax. The floor is mostly dirt. Your sleeping spot is a lumpy pile of straw that may or may not contain half a frog. You lie down, still covered in goo. Outside, a man yells about. Demons. Inside, your neighbor is praying loudly for her boils to go away. You sneeze. Bad move. Two people glance at you like you've just declared war. Welcome to the age of spiritual blame and bodily confusion. Get sick and people assume you sinned, or that your neighbor did, or that the miller's wife is secretly a witch. Someone must be responsible. And if there's no obvious culprit, congratulations, you're it. You once saw a woman get accused of poisoning the well because she walked backwards. Near it during a full moon. They tied her to a chair and dumped her in the river. She floated. They decided she was guilty, then let her go. She did not come back. You feel a cough building in your chest. You swallow it hard. Better to be quietly dying than publicly suspicious. You try other cures. You boil moss in water and drink it. You stuff dried mint in your nose. You chew willow bark until your jaw aches. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it just makes you vomit with more flavor. Historians still argue about how effective these folk remedies were. Some, like willow bark, which contains salicin, a natural precursor to aspirin, genuinely worked. Others were less helpful, like trepanning. You've heard of a man who had a hole bored into his skull to let the bad air out. He said he felt lighter afterward. He also walked in circles for the rest of his life. You go back to the healer once more. She blows smoke over you. You cough harder. She gives you a dried rat tail to hang around. Your neck. For balance, she says. You nod. Balance sounds nice. That night you sweat through your straw bed. You dream of cold streams and quiet forests, places without coughs or leeches or chanting. You wake up damp, sore, and miraculously still breathing. You made it another day. And in the Middle Ages, that's a solid win. Your chest still aches. Your breath comes heavy, but you sit up. You put on your scratchy wool tunic, tighten the rope belt, and step into the pale morning sun. Outside, someone's bleeding from the face. No one reacts. You nod at him. He nods back. Because here survival is normal and thriving is just surviving for slightly longer. You're in trouble, not the kind you can run from. Not something with teeth or claws for teeth. This trouble is quieter, human, political, religious. The kind that starts with a glance and ends with a crowd. You sneezed again this morning and someone saw you do it near the church steps. Now 3 villagers are whispering in a very organized way. One of them made the sign of the cross after looking at you. Another spat in the dirt, specifically in your direction. You tried to smile. That was a mistake. Welcome to the medieval village justice system. If something bad happens, it must be someone's fault. And preferably, it's someone a little odd. Someone with a limp or a scar or a habit of mumbling to themselves. Or maybe just someone who doesn't bathe on Saint Days. Guess who fits that description? You. This isn't yours. First brush with suspicion. You've already been side-eyed for gathering herbs in the woods. You once mentioned the moon in a sentence not about the Virgin Mary, which got you a week of suspicious glances, and now you've sneezed twice in the same week during what people are calling a cursed season. Historians still argue how widespread formal inquisitions were across early medieval villages. The Spanish Inquisition gets all the headlines, but low-level witch trials, blasphemy accusations, and unholy behavior penalties were rampant long before that. You're starting to feel the heat. Literally, someone lights a torch in the town square for the evening vigil, and you can't help but notice how many people are standing around watching. Not quite accusing, but definitely not accusing. You retreat to your heel and stay quiet. You think about running, but where would you go? The next village. They'd ask who you are, why you arrived alone, what that smell is, still lingering from the goat. Let's be honest. And eventually you'd be just as suspicious there, maybe more. You didn't do anything, but that's not really the point. The town priest has taken an interest. He's a wiry man with intense eyes and a passion for dramatic pauses. During his sermon, he talks about evil among us and disease as punishment. He doesn't name names. He doesn't have to. People glance at you anyway. Quirky fact: trials by ordeal were still practiced during this period. Accused of wrongdoing, you might be asked to carry a red-hot iron bar. If your burns healed cleanly, you were innocent. If not, well, God had spoken. You step carefully now. You attend church. You bow your head. You mutter along with the prayers, even though you barely understand the Latin. You avoid the healer's hut. Everyone knows herbs are fine until they aren't. One moment you're chewing willow bark, the next you're accused of hexing the bread. You once helped a sick child by giving them honey mixed with crushed mint. It helped their cough. But now people call it the whisper leaf and wonder if you did something else. Something unnatural. You stop helping. Someone drops a chicken egg in the square. It shatters. People stare at the yolk, then at the person who dropped it, then at the sky, then at you. You're not sure what connection they're drawing, but you don't like it. You consider pretending to be ill just to lay low. But faking illness is dangerous. So is being ill. It's a tightrope walk between harmless and cursed. Then it happens. You find a small pouch outside your hut, tied shut with twine. Inside, a dead mouse, a feather, and a bit of human hair. You don't need an explanation. This is an accusation. Somebody believes you're the cause of the recent bad harvest. The illness, the weird dreams people have been complaining about, maybe even the rain that came too hard and too fast last week. They've decided you're a witch. You want to scream to tell them you're just tired, just poor, just very, very unlucky. But you know how it goes. Once suspicion sticks, it doesn't wash off. Not with water, not with prayer. Historians still debate how many people were executed for witchcraft in the early Middle Ages, but even in places without formal trials, exile or mob violence was common. No one wanted to be near the cursed one. So what do? You gather what little you have. A bundle of dried meat, a rough stone knife, the leather wrap that barely counts as shoes, and you slip away at dawn before the village fully stirs. You don't run. Not quite. That would look guilty. You walk head down, feet sore, into the woods, into the mist, back to a life without walls, without food security, without the stink of suspicion. You don't know where you're going, but at least no one's watching you cough anymore. And in this world, that counts as peace. You are surrounded by salt, crusted in your hair, caked on your clothes, burning the cracks in your fingers. You blink against the glare bouncing off. The ocean, eyes stinging from the mix of sun, wind, and sea spray. Welcome aboard. You're officially a sailor now, or more accurately, a reluctant passenger with zero nautical experience who's been roped into the crew of a wooden death trap headed somewhere, east, west, maybe just in circles. You're not sure. The navigator seems confident, but you've seen him throw up into a bucket more than once. The bucket is also used for soup. You are on a medieval sea voyage, and it is not romantic. There's no fresh breeze or cheerful singing. There's groaning timber, damp bedding, and an endless supply of rats with far too much personality. You sleep beside barrels of pickled something. Your pillow is a coil of scratchy rope, and your daily routine consists mostly of not falling overboard. Every inch of this ship smells like salt, wood rot, and old fish. The crew is a mix of wide-eyed teens, sunburned veterans, and one suspicious man who talks to his boots. You're not sure what your role is. You just know you're expected to pull ropes, carry buckets, and not die. You're also starting to notice something troubling. Your gums bleed a little at first, then more. When you bite into your stale biscuit, the one meal of the day, you feel something wriggle. It's a tooth, or what's left of it. You spit it over the side and try not to panic because panic wastes energy. Historians widely agree that scurvy was the curse of pre-modern sailors caused by a lack of vitamin C. It led to bleeding gums, tooth loss, muscle pain, and eventually death. You don't know what vitamin means, but your body does, and it's begging for something green. You haven't seen a vegetable in weeks. You tried chewing on a bit of sailcloth soaked in seawater. That only made things worse. A shipmate suggests chewing rope. Keeps the hunger down. He says he's missing 3 fingers. You start chewing rope. At night, you lie awake, swaying with the ship. The stars are bright and cold. The sea breathes beneath you slow and massive. You've learned not to ask questions like, how far are we, or what's our plan? The answer is always the same. If the wind holds, we'll be fine. The wind never holds. You get stuck in the doldrums. Days of stillness, heat, no shade, no progress. You drink warm water from slimy barrels. One has something floating in it. You try not to look. Someone dies. He was old. Or maybe just unlucky. Fever, vomiting, then silence. The captain says a prayer. The crew wraps him in a tarp, ties a stone to his feet and slides him off the side. The splash is small. The silence afterward is enormous. You help scrub the deck with vinegar and seawater, pretending it helps. Quirky fact, many sailors believed lemon juice was a miracle. The British Navy wouldn't make citrus standard issue until much later. But early voyages sometimes discovered the cure by accident when someone snuck on a few barrels of limes. You don't have limes. You have hardtack, dried fish, and quiet despair. You get used. To the taste of mold. Everything is damp. Even your skin feels soggy. You have sore on your legs. One has started to ooze. You show it to a shipmate. He nods sagely and gives you a strip of cloth dipped in rum and spit. It burns, but you say thank you. A storm hits. You're below deck when it starts. Then suddenly not. The waves lift the ship like a toy. Rain lashes your face. You grip the mast and pray to every god you can think of. Lightning flashes. Someone screams. The sails snap. The boat spins. You think this is it. This is the end. It's not. You wake the next morning in a puddle. Half the crew is gone, swept overboard or disappeared below. You help patch the sail with trembling fingers. You drink from a cracked gourd. You don't speak for 2 days. The wind changes. You sail on. Eventually you spot land. At first it looks like a cloud. Then trees, then people. You want to cry. Instead you throw up seawater and try to remember how legs work. You're thinner now. You stink of brine. You've lost 3 teeth. Your hair is matted. You no longer flinch when rats walk over you. But you've survived barely. No one claps when you step ashore. No one cheers. You just walk forward. Bones groaning, skin raw from sun and salt. You don't know the language. You don't care. Land is under your feet. And for now, that's enough. You wake to the sound of hammers. Not gentle ones, not helpful ones. These are the hammers of industry. Loud, hot, relentless. The kind that echo in your ribs and fill your ears with a constant clang, clang, clang until you forget what silence ever sounded like. The air smells like smoke and soot and metal that's just lost its temper. You open your eyes to fog, ash, and the faint taste of coal on your tongue. You're in the Industrial Revolution now, and it sucks. You don't know much about revolutions, but this one doesn't involve freedom or fancy speeches. It involves work. Endless choking, soul-dissolving work. You're in a city now. A real one. Proper cluster of brick, steel, chimneys, gears, and men who shout a lot and never smile. Your job? Factory worker. The pay miserable, the hours, all of them. Your shift starts before sunrise and ends after sunset. The factory bell is your god now. When it rings, you move. When it stops, you collapse. The floor is slick with oil and sweat. The walls are damp. The windows, if there are any, are black with soot. The machines never stop. They thrum and groan and belch smoke like overfed dragons. And they do not care if your fingers are too slow. You already lost a thumbnail. The man next to you is missing half a hand. Nobody talks about it. Everyone keeps working. Quirky fact. During the 18th and 19th centuries, children as young as 5 worked in textile mills, coal mines, and matchstick factories. You're lucky. You're old enough to have slightly stronger lungs. Slightly. No job is feeding a loom or a press or something that chews up cotton and spits out thread. No, not sure. You just know to keep your hands away from the fast-moving parts. You don't always succeed. Blisters swell on your palms. Your back throbs from hunching. You've forgotten what it's like to walk without limping. And still the overseer shouts, "Faster." You nod and move faster. You're not sure why. There's no food at the factory, just a bucket of water and a bench for 5 minutes of sitting if you're lucky. Your lunch is a dry heel of bread you chewed slowly in the alley out back. You ate half and saved the other half. For hope, you spend your breaks coughing. Everyone does. The air is thick with coal dust. Your snot is black. Your throat always burns. The doctor said it's the black lung, then laughed like it was a joke. It wasn't. You once tried breathing through a damp cloth. It helped for about 10 minutes. Then it turned into a moldy rag and made things worse. The noise is constant. You no longer notice it. Your ears ring even when the machines stop. You go to sleep hearing them. You dream of gears grinding. You wake to your own scream when you think your hands have been caught again. It wasn't this time. You rent a cot in a room with 5 other workers. The walls are damp. The window is broken. There's one bucket for all of you, and it isn't for drinking. The man who sleeps beside you grinds his teeth so loudly it sounds like a bone saw. Someone else cries in their sleep. No one says anything. There's nothing to say. Historians marvel at the productivity of the era, the growth, the expansion, the sheer scale of what was built. And yes, the machines were incredible. Steam engines, power looms, spinning jennies, the marvels of modernity. But you know what else was incredible? The smell. Coal smoke and sewage, horse manure and body odor, rotting food and factory grease, all blending into a thick soup that clung to your clothes and followed you home like a loyal plague. You want to leave. You dream of fields, of silence, of just breathing air that doesn't crunch in your lungs. But you can't. You need the money because you rent the cot, because you owe for bread, because your boots have holes, because your sister works in the matchstick factory and her cough has gotten worse. You're not building a better future. You're barely building Tuesday. The street outside is always wet. It never rains. It just stays wet. People pour waste from windows. Rats skitter like they own the place. You once saw a man collapse in the street, face first into the filth. No one helped him. You didn't either. You just walked to work. Because if you're late, you lose a day's pay. And if you lose a day's pay, you lose your cot. And if you lose your cot, you're next. You climb the factory stairs again. You nod to the same faces, all grey with soot, all hollow-eyed. No one smiles. No one jokes. There's no time for laughter, just survival. The machine roars to life. You feed it. You move your hands carefully, and you hope it doesn't notice you're tired. Because machines don't care if you're human. They only care if you're useful. You're knee-deep in mud and history. Thick, cold, ankle-grabbing sludge that sucks at your boots every time you try to take a step. It's not just wet, it's malicious. The kind of mud that knows what it's doing. You're in a trench somewhere in France or Belgium. Or maybe just in a nameless scar dug into the earth during a time no one will ever forget. But everyone wants to. You're in the First World War now, and it is misery perfected around you. Rats the size of house cats. Over you, a grey sky that never quite lightens. Beneath you, layers of wet clothes, decomposing rations, and yes, the occasional human bone. The smell is indescribable. A mix of mold, sweat, gunpowder, urine, and fear. You breathe through your mouth, but that's worse. You try your nose. That's worse too. There's no winning here. Just breathing. Just enduring. Your uniform is soaked. Your fingers are numb. You haven't changed your socks in a week, and your feet are not right, puffy, pale, tender, like bruised fruit. You, my friend, have trenchute. Quirky fact. Trenchute could set in after just 24 hours in damp boots. The solution? Dry socks. The problem? You haven't seen a dry anything in days. You try wiggling your toes. They don't respond. You pretend that's fine. Behind you, someone is singing softly, off-key. Something about home. You try not to listen. Home feels impossibly far. You can't remember what it smelled like. Probably not mud. The sergeant barks an order. You grab your gear. Too heavy, too wet, and haul yourself up to the firing step. Your fingers barely close around the rifle. You haven't fired it in days or maybe hours. Time here is elastic, stretching and snapping and looping like the wire coils lining the no man's land ahead. The ground shakes. Artillery, distant, then closer. You flinch, but you don't duck. No one ducks anymore. You just flinch and hope your name isn't written on that particular shell. Historians still debate the daily routines in the trenches, how long soldiers rotated in and out, whether officers suffered less, whether anyone ever really slept. You know the truth. You sleep in shallow shifts, waking at every cough, rat squeak, or whispered curse. You once saw a man stand up too fast and vanish in a spray of mud and bone. No scream, just gone. You didn't ask his name. You didn't want to know. Food comes in tins, cold, slimy, sometimes infested. You eat it anyway. There's no flavor, just texture, and not the good kind. Water comes in cantons that smell like rust. You sip it slowly, hoping it won't make your stomach turn again. The worst part, it's the waiting. Waiting for orders for dawn. for the shrill whistle that means over the top. You don't want to go. No one does. But when that whistle blows, you move, or someone moves you. You've done it before. You remember the last time clambering over the trench lip, knees shaking, heart trying to claw its way out of your chest, charging into the fog and the wire and the noise. You didn't fire your rifle. You just ran. Tripped, crawled, tried not to die. You made it back. Most didn't. You don't talk about that. A letter from home arrived last week, smudged with dirt. You reread it every night, even though the words are starting to fade. Someone misses you. You're not sure if you miss them back. It's hard to feel anything through this fog. You've learned to stop hoping. Hope is dangerous. Hope gets you thinking about the future. And in this place, that's a luxury. You think only in hours, in meals, in inches of dry ground, and in socks. Always socks. The man beside you is snoring. He has a photograph pinned inside his coat. You peeked at it once. Blurry, smiling people. Probably family. Probably gone. You never asked. He never offered. You hear a rat. You swatted it. It doesn't care. Nothing here does. Not the weather, not the officers, not the universe. You get mail occasionally. Sometimes chocolate. Usually. Just paper. You trade it for cigarettes or gloves or half a tin of beans. It's all about trade here. Survival economics. A dry match is gold. A spare bootlace is currency. A moment of quiet. Priceless. The officer walks by, doesn't speak, just glances down the line, looking for weakness. You keep your head low. You don't make eye contact. You don't volunteer. You never volunteer. Later, a shell hits closer. The ground shakes. Your helmet rattles. Someone yells. Another yells back. Then silence. Again. You crouch deeper into the trench. It feels like the world is shivering. You close your eyes just for a moment. You dream of grass, of stillness, of air that doesn't smell like blood. Then you wake up to mud in your mouth and something buzzing too close to your ear. You wipe it away and whisper, "I'm still here." And that somehow is a victory. You're standing in a supermarket. Fluorescent lights hum above you. The floor is polished. The air smells like refrigeration and artificially. Ripened fruit. A child is crying faintly in aisle 7. And someone nearby is whispering angrily into a Bluetooth earpiece. Somewhere overhead, a soft, forgettable pop song is playing. You're not sure which century it is anymore. You look down at your hands. They're clean, soft even. Your nails are short. Your fingertips aren't stained with blood, dirt, or ash. You pick up a plastic-wrapped box of strawberries. In winter, in a country that doesn't even grow them. You stare at it for a long time. Then you laugh because this is the future. But somehow you're still the same ancient creature underneath. You wander the aisles in a daze. You're surrounded by food. Endless food. Shelves stacked with things you can't even name. Labels covered in smiling cows. Cartoon bees and promises like low-carb or gut-friendly. You don't know what a probiotic is, but you assume it's expensive. There are no predators here. No rain, no hyenas, no saber-toothed cats hiding behind the bananas. And yet you feel uneasy. You reach for a loaf of bread and the plastic crackles under your fingers. It smells faintly of nothing. You put it down. Your body is different now. Your brain has grown. You've mapped the stars, split the atom, walked on the moon. But the ancient wiring is still there. The old code. The fight-or-flight reflex that doesn't know what to do when the threat isn't a lion, but a slow draining inbox or a 2 a.m. notification buzz. Historians still argue whether modern stress is better or worse than ancestral fear. But you know one thing for sure, your heart doesn't know the difference. It beats the same. Fast, heavy, like it's 2 million years ago and something is about to pounce. You move through the aisles like you used to move through forests, cautiously scanning, evaluating. That instinct to gather hasn't left you, it's just been redirected. You collect things now. Bottles, charges, loyalty points. Your stash isn't meat and berries anymore. It's apps, passwords, emergency. Snacks. You find yourself eyeing other people's carts. You judge. You compare. You wonder if your choices are better or worse or more evolved. A woman ahead of you is piling up bottled water. Her shoes are clean. Her teeth are straight. But the look in her eyes, you recognize it. It's the look of someone who's lived through something uncertain, something shaky, something that made the old fear wake up again. You wonder if she feels it too. That strange ache for something real. For bark between. Your teeth, for the solid certainty of climbing a tree to escape a predator, for days when bad meant you might die before sunset, not you missed a deadline. You leave the strawberries. You walk out into the parking lot. The sun is bright but filtered through haze. Cars line the roads like grazing metal beasts. There's no mud, no bones, no vultures circling, but you still squint at the sky like it might suddenly change. Like the climate still isn't finished deciding what it wants to do. You sit on a bench and breathe. And it's here that you realize the strangest thing of all. Despite the comfort, the lights, the options, the fact that you haven't been chased by a predator in years, you still feel tired. Not physically, not exactly, but deep inside, bone deep, ancient deep, like some part of you is still stuck in the trees or the trench or the salt spray. You survived all of it, but your body remembers. That's the cruel trick of evolution. It equips you for one world, then drops you in another. You're wired for starvation but surrounded by abundance. Trained for danger but drowning in minor inconveniences. You have fire, you have soap, you have indoor plumbing. And still your brain hoards snacks, flinches at loud noises, and mistrusts the silence. Because you were never meant for this world. Not exactly. You're just borrowing it and doing your best, one ancient heartbeat at a time. So now, as the journey fades behind you and the long road through human history settles into stillness, let's pause. Let's breathe. You've trudged through the mud of ancient forests, the grit of Bronze Age streets, the soot of industrial cities, and the static buzz of the modern world. You've felt the fear of predators, the sting of hunger, the ache of cold nights with no fire. You've labored in darkness, endured in silence, watched as the world transformed around you over and over again. And through it all, you survived. You, the old creature in a new shell, still scanning, still storing, still shivering under fluorescent lights. Not because you're cold, but because something buried deep remembers the wind on bare skin and the crack of branches in the night. But now it's safe to rest. The world outside might still be loud. Your thoughts might still be restless, but in this moment you've earned a little peace. Let the muscles in your face soften. Let your breath slow. Let the images drift away. Stone tools, smoky huts, crowded ships, muddy trenches, all fading gently into mist. You're here now in warmth, in safety, in quiet. Let that ancient heart beat calmly in your chest. It has done enough. And you, my friend, you're still human, still trying, still here. Good night.